I overheard my husband's affair. Watch how I turned the tables. I stood in the brightly lit gymnasium, surrounded by tables of homemade cupcakes, glitter-covered crafts, and the joyful chaos of screaming children. It was the annual Spring Fling at Meadowbrook Elementary, and as the lead volunteer for our daughter's class, I was supposed to be in control. But instead, my mind was spinning, my hands shaking as I stacked goodie bags for the kids. I'd just overheard my husband, the man I thought I knew inside and out, betray me in the most unimaginable way. "Yeah, babe, I'll meet you tonight. Don't worry, she's at that stupid school thing again." His voice came from the hallway just outside the gym, low and casual, like he was talking about what he wanted for dinner. Only, it wasn't dinner. He was talking to her. My Ethan, 45 years old, successful real estate developer, the doting father of our 8-year-old daughter, Lily, was cheating on me. His tone was so smooth, so rehearsed, I almost didn't recognize it as the man I'd spent the last 12 years of my life with. I froze. My body went cold, the festive decorations blurring around me. It wasn't just the betrayal that hit me, it was the ease with which he lied, right here, at our daughter's event. And he wasn't even clever about it. He couldn't be bothered to make up an excuse about a late meeting or a traffic jam. No, he used me, my role as the perfect volunteer mom, the perfect wife, to cover for his affair. I should have stormed out there, grabbed his phone, and unleashed the full force of my fury in front of the principal, the kids, the other moms who idolized our perfect marriage. But something stopped me. A new idea, born from the rage bubbling up inside, took hold. Why confront him and let him apologize, make excuses, cry crocodile tears? No, Ethan didn't deserve a quick, clean confrontation. He deserved humiliation. He deserved to be slowly stripped of the image he had so carefully curated, the loving husband, the dedicated father, the man who seemed to have it all. He deserved to suffer. My phone buzzed in my pocket, snapping me out of the daze. "Hey, Sarah, everything okay? You look a bit pale," called out Emily, one of the other moms, snapping a picture of her son making a mess at the cupcake table. She was the picture of suburban innocence, blonde bob, perky smile, PTA president at just 39 years old, with 2 kids and a dentist husband who adored her. I forced a smile. "Just tired. You know how these events are, running us moms ragged." The words were mechanical, as if my mouth was moving on autopilot while my mind raced ahead. Ethan reappeared, tucking his phone away into his pocket, walking towards me with that charming smile he wore like a second skin. His blue eyes sparkled as he placed a hand on my back, acting every bit the doting husband. "Hey, honey," he said smoothly, leaning in to kiss my cheek. I let him, swallowing down the bile rising in my throat. "Everything going okay with the event? You're doing such an amazing job." Amazing job. The irony wasn't lost on me. Little did he know, he wasn't the only one playing a role today. "Oh, everything's perfect," I said, matching his sweetness. "Just wait, darling, it's all about to fall apart." As the event dragged on, I watched Ethan, like a hawk, noting every charming smile he gave to the other moms, every joke he shared with the dads. He was playing his part beautifully, unaware that the audience was about to turn against him. The rest of the day felt like I was floating through a haze of disbelief. I went through the motions, laughing, chatting, helping Lily with her art project, all while my mind buzzed with a single, burning question: how long? How long had he been seeing her? How many nights had he lied about working late, meetings, traffic? And how had I been so blind? I couldn't think about it for too long without wanting to scream. As the afternoon wore on, I made a decision. I wasn't going to be the sad, betrayed wife who let this crush her. No, I was going to be smart. If Ethan thought he could deceive me, use me, and get away with it, he was about to learn a hard lesson. I would expose him, but not just to me. No, that was too easy. I wanted everyone to see the truth, the neighbors who thought we were the perfect couple, the friends who envied our life, even his own colleagues. But first, I needed to gather more information. I needed to know everything: how often he saw her, where, and if anyone else knew. I wasn't about to go in unarmed. If I was going to bring him down, it would be with precision, like a well-planned strike. Ethan kissed me goodbye when the event ended, his lips warm but hollow against my skin. "I've got to run back to the office for a bit," he said, the lie slipping out so easily I could hardly believe I'd once fallen for it. Late meeting with a client. I'll be home by 8. Take your time, I said sweetly, adding a light kiss on his cheek for good measure. I'll be busy planning something special for you. His grin widened. You're the best, Sarah. Oh, I know. As soon as he was out of sight, I slipped away from the crowd, pulling out my phone. I had to be careful, precise. One wrong move and this whole thing could blow up too soon. But if I played my cards right, the flames wouldn't just burn Ethan, they'd consume everything he cared about. That night, after putting Lily to bed, I opened Ethan's laptop. He always left it on the kitchen counter, and I knew his password by heart. Our anniversary, naturally. Within minutes, I had everything I needed. His calendar, his emails, even his messages. He wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. As I scrolled through his emails, my hands shaking with a strange mix of rage and excitement, one message in particular caught my eye. A reservation for a business trip next week. Only, it wasn't business. The guest listed was Jessica Palmer, the same Jessica I'd met briefly at his office party last month, young, blonde, and absolutely oblivious to the fact that she was about to become collateral damage in the disaster I was planning. I stared at the screen, a slow smile creeping across my face. The trap was set. I spent the next few days biding my time, keeping everything normal on the surface. I was still the same Sarah, volunteering at school, organizing playdates, and smiling sweetly at Ethan as he came and went. But beneath that facade, I was studying him, his patterns, his phone calls, his emails. I became a detective in my own life, piecing together the puzzle of his deceit. And then, it happened, the twist that nearly derailed my entire plan. It was a Thursday evening, and Ethan had just left for another business dinner. I knew where he really was, meeting Jessica at some dimly lit restaurant downtown. I could almost picture it, the way he'd lean in close to her, making promises he had no intention of keeping. Promises he once made to me. But tonight wasn't about them, it was about what came next. I had set my plan in motion, slowly starting to weave doubts into the minds of those around us. A casual comment to Emily about Ethan working late, a concerned question to one of his colleagues about whether he seemed stressed. Nothing too direct, just little seeds of suspicion planted here and there, waiting to bloom. After putting Lily to bed, I decided to pour myself a glass of wine and take a look at Ethan's calendar. I wanted to make sure everything was still on track for the following week, when he and Jessica were supposed to take their little getaway. I planned to expose them both in a way no one would forget. I opened his laptop, typed in the password "our anniversary" again, and my stomach dropped. The password didn't work. I tried again, my fingers moving more carefully this time. Still nothing. What the hell? I muttered, panic beginning to rise. Had he changed it? Did he know I was snooping? No. He couldn't know. I hadn't done anything obvious. But then again, Ethan was smarter than most gave him credit for. I paced the kitchen, thinking back to the last few days. Had I slipped up, said something that made him suspicious? As I racked my brain, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Emily. Emily, hey Sarah, quick question. Do you know a Jessica Palmer? She works at Ethan's office, right? I stared at the message, my heart pounding in my chest. Why was Emily asking about Jessica? I hadn't mentioned her to anyone. There was no way she could know about the affair. Unless Jessica had gotten sloppy. My fingers flew across the screen as I replied. Sarah, yeah, I've met her a couple of times. Why do you ask? A moment later, Emily responded. Emily, you're going to think this is crazy, but I ran into her at the salon today. She was getting a blowout and talking about some trip she's going on with her boyfriend. She didn't say his name, but she mentioned he's married. Holy shit. I nearly dropped my phone. Jessica was openly talking about her affair in public, to strangers, in our town, no less. She wasn't just reckless, she was stupid. Sarah, are you serious? What else did she say? Emily, not much, but I thought it was weird. I mean, who brags about dating a married guy, right? Sarah, right. Definitely weird. Weird was an understatement. Jessica was practically waving a neon sign, advertising her affair for anyone to see. And now, thanks to her big mouth, the gossip wheels were already turning. I took a deep breath, my mind spinning with new possibilities. This wasn't a setback, it was an opportunity. Jessica's arrogance was going to speed up my timeline and make the downfall even more spectacular. But just as I started to feel back in control, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a notification from Ethan's email account. I'd forgotten that I'd set up an alert for anything related to his hotel reservation. I opened the email, my heart thudding in my chest. It was a confirmation of the booking for next week, but something in the message caught my eye. Additional guest added Lily Williams. I stared at the screen, my blood running cold. Lily, our daughter? He was planning to take our child on his little rendezvous with Jessica. What kind of monster did that? Suddenly, my entire plan seemed too small, too insignificant for what I was now facing. This wasn't just a cheating husband and a mistress. This was our daughter's innocence being dragged into their twisted affair. Ethan had crossed a line that I didn't even know existed. For a brief moment, rage consumed me. I wanted to drive to that restaurant, drag him out by his collar, and scream in his face in front of everyone. I wanted to humiliate him, destroy him right then and there. But no, I couldn't let my emotions take over. If I wanted to win this, I had to be smarter than him. I had to be more calculating. I took a deep breath and forced myself to think. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about protecting Lily. If Ethan was willing to involve her in his affair, what else was he capable of? I had to destroy him completely. I had to make sure he never had the chance to hurt her or me again. I poured myself another glass of wine, this time with shaky hands. The game had changed, and so had my plan. It wasn't enough to expose the affair now. I had to make sure Ethan's life was left in ruins, that he was stripped of everything he valued, his reputation, his career, and most importantly, his role as a father. I glanced at the clock. It was 7:30. Ethan would be home in half an hour, as smug as ever, thinking he was in control. But little did he know, I was just getting started. As I stood in the kitchen, the wine glass cold in my hand, the wheels of my mind began to turn faster. I had to think strategically now. Ethan had proven himself not only unfaithful but reckless, bringing our daughter into his twisted affair with Jessica. This wasn't just a game of subtle manipulation anymore. It was war. And I was going to win. Over the next few days, I crafted the most elaborate plan of my life. First, I had to cover my tracks. I couldn't risk Ethan getting suspicious of me, so I played the perfect wife. I asked him about his day, smiled over dinner, even pretended to be excited when he mentioned a weekend work retreat coming up, aka his planned getaway with Jessica. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, I was laying the groundwork. The first part of my plan was simple: create doubt. I had already started with Emily, but now I needed to widen the net. And I knew exactly how. Our neighbors, John and Susan Matthews, were the local busybodies. They thrived on gossip and loved knowing everyone's business. If there was ever a scandal to spread, they'd be the first to fuel the flames. One afternoon, I accidentally ran into Susan outside while she was trimming her rose bushes. "Susan," I waved enthusiastically, my best friendly smile plastered across my face. "Oh, Sarah, how are you, dear?" Susan chirped, wiping her hands on her gardening gloves. "I'm good, just a little worried about Ethan, honestly." I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice as if I were confiding in her. "Worried? About Ethan?" Susan's eyes sparkled with curiosity. Hook, line, and sinker. "Well, he's been so busy with work lately, and I just feel like something's off. He's been spending a lot of time with this woman from his office, Jessica." "Do you know her?" I asked, feigning innocence. Susan's brows furrowed as she processed the information. "No, I don't think so. But a woman, you say?" "Yeah, she's blonde, pretty, younger. I'm sure it's nothing, but you know how people talk." I trailed off, giving her an opening to do what she did best: speculate. That was all it took. By the end of the day, half the neighborhood would be whispering about Ethan's late nights and his suspicious female colleague. Ethan's company had their monthly happy hour coming up, a perfect opportunity for me to plant some seeds in his professional life. I'd never gone before, but this time, I insisted on coming with him. "It's been so long since I've seen your colleagues. I'd love to catch up with everyone," I gushed, making sure to look like the doting wife who just wanted to support her husband. Ethan hesitated for a moment, probably wondering if this would interfere with his plans, but then smiled and agreed. "Sure, babe, that sounds great." At the happy hour, I made sure to cozy up to his boss, Greg, and a few of his work buddies. I casually mentioned how Ethan had been so stressed lately, staying late at the office. He's been working closely with Jessica Palmer, hasn't he? I asked innocently, as if I barely knew her name. She's such a hard worker. They've been spending a lot of late nights together. Greg raised an eyebrow but said nothing. However, I could see the wheels turning. People noticed things like this, especially in office environments. And once whispers of workplace relationships started, they spread like wildfire. Now that the neighborhood and Ethan's co-workers were buzzing with suspicions, I needed the final piece in place. Jessica. Remember that little slip-up at the salon? Jessica's bragging had already planted doubts in Emily's mind. So, I arranged a little chance meeting with Jessica herself. It was easy enough. I knew she frequented a particular yoga studio on Saturdays, so I made sure to sign up for a class. Afterward, I waited outside, and sure enough, there she was, her blonde ponytail swaying as she walked toward her car. "Jessica," I called out, pretending to be surprised. She turned, her face lighting up in recognition, though it was clear she wasn't thrilled to see me. "Oh, Sarah, hi." I approached her with a friendly smile. "It's been so long. How are you?" "Good, good. Just busy, you know, work and everything." She shifted uncomfortably, clearly wanting to get out of this conversation. "I can imagine. Ethan's been working so hard lately, too. I think you two have been spending a lot of time together, right?" I asked, tilting my head innocently. Jessica's eyes flickered with panic for just a moment before she quickly composed herself. "Oh, yeah, we've had a few projects together, nothing major." I leaned in slightly, dropping my voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "Well, I just wanted to say thank you. It's so sweet of you to keep him company on those long nights. I know how lonely it must be for him." Jessica's face paled, and she stammered something about needing to go. I let her leave, watching her scramble to her car, knowing full well that my words had planted a seed of fear in her mind. She knew I was onto her, and now, she'd be looking over her shoulder. The final stage of my plan involved the upcoming weekend retreat. Ethan thought he was going to take Lily on his romantic rendezvous with Jessica, but I had other ideas. A few days before the trip, I casually mentioned to my friends and family that Ethan had planned a last-minute vacation with Lily, just the two of them. "I guess he's trying to make up for lost time," I said, feigning a sad smile. "But something about it just doesn't feel right to me. A business trip with our daughter? It seems strange." That was all it took. Suddenly, everyone around me was questioning Ethan's motives, concerned for Lily, wondering why a father would bring his young daughter on a work trip. I even dropped a subtle hint to Ethan's mother during a phone call. "I'm sure it's nothing," I told her, "but maybe you could ask him about it, just to make sure everything's above board." By the time the weekend rolled around, Ethan was trapped. He had no idea that I had set the stage for his downfall. The gossip was spreading like wildfire, and all eyes were now on him. As I packed Lily's bag for the trip, I couldn't help but smile. Ethan had no idea what was coming. He thought he was in control, thought he could juggle his double life without consequences, but I was about to rip his world apart. And the best part, he wouldn't even see it coming. Saturday morning dawned, and everything was in place. Ethan was unusually cheerful, oblivious to the web I had so carefully spun around him. As he loaded the car, preparing for his romantic getaway disguised as a father-daughter trip, I feigned exhaustion and concern. "I just feel like this trip is so rushed," I murmured, standing on the front porch as Lily tugged at my arm, eager to get going. "Are you sure everything is okay, Ethan?" He flashed me a reassuring smile, his eyes glinting with that fake sincerity I'd grown to hate. "Of course, babe. It's just a quick getaway. Some time with Lily before I get swamped at work again." I let out a deep sigh, giving him one last pitiful look as if I were reluctantly letting go of my worries. "All right, take care of her." As they pulled out of the driveway, I turned and walked inside, my heart racing with anticipation. Everything I had set up over the past few weeks was about to come crashing down on him. About an hour later, I made my first call right to Ethan's mother, Sharon. "Hi, Sharon," I began, my voice soft and shaky. "I just wanted to check in with you. I don't know if I'm being paranoid, but something about this trip Ethan took with Lily doesn't sit right with me." There was silence on the other end, then Sharon's concerned voice came through. What do you mean, Sarah? You don't think something's wrong, do you? I hesitated, letting the tension build. Well, it's probably nothing, but you know how he's been spending a lot of late nights with that woman from work, Jessica. I mean, I'm sure it's professional, but when I heard they were planning this trip, I don't know, it felt strange. Sharon gasped, clearly alarmed. Jessica? That young woman he works with? Yes. I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to cause any trouble, but I think it might be worth looking into. I mean, taking Lily along, it just seems like something's off. Sharon thanked me and hung up, but I knew exactly what was going to happen next. Within the hour, Sharon would be on the phone with Ethan, expressing her concerns, and the entire family would start buzzing with questions. As expected, the Matthews, our ever-watchful neighbors, weren't far behind. I made sure to send Susan a quick text about how Ethan had forgotten something important at home, then added a little extra fuel to the fire. You won't believe who I think he's meeting up with. That woman from his office, Jessica. I hope I'm wrong, but can you keep an eye out for anything suspicious? Naturally, Susan couldn't resist. By midday, the gossip mill in the neighborhood was running at full speed. I didn't even need to lift another finger. The entire street was now scrutinizing Ethan's every move, waiting for the scandal to break wide open. Now for the final part, Ethan's boss. Earlier in the week, I'd subtly sown doubts with Greg, hinting that something was odd about Ethan's sudden retreat with Jessica. Greg wasn't one to meddle in personal affairs, but when the topic came up again during a casual lunch at the office, conveniently brought up by a colleague I'd spoken to, Greg started paying attention. The day of the retreat, Greg got wind of Ethan's absence from the office and made a casual call to check on things. Hey Ethan, just wanted to see if everything's going smoothly. I heard you were out with Jessica and Lily. Greg's tone was light, but I could practically hear the suspicion creeping in. Ethan's response was quick. Oh, no, just a quick trip. Jessica's not here. It's just me and Lily, family time, you know. Greg paused, then asked, right, but didn't Jessica mention something about this trip? I thought she was involved with the planning. There was a long silence. Ethan, thrown off, stammered something about mix-ups and miscommunications, but the damage was done. Greg didn't need to say anything further. The rumors were already swirling back at the office. Everyone was beginning to question just how professional Ethan's relationship with Jessica really was. While Ethan was busy juggling the mounting suspicion from his family, neighbors, and co-workers, I set the final part of the plan into motion. The real reason I hadn't confronted him directly yet. I had been waiting for the perfect moment, our daughter Lily's school event the following weekend. I made sure to be in charge of the volunteer team for the event, coordinating everything from the decorations to the family photos. I had Ethan's name written into the program as a key parent volunteer so he wouldn't be able to avoid attending. And of course, Jessica was coming too. After all, she was a regular attendee at Lily's school events, being the fun, young teacher who always got involved with the kids. The day of the event was glorious. The sun was shining, the parents were mingling, and Ethan, thinking he had everything under control, arrived with Lily, playing the perfect father in front of the whole school. Jessica showed up not long after, flashing her bright smile and waving at the parents. She looked comfortable, confident, even a little cocky, just the way I wanted her to. As the event progressed, I discreetly arranged for Lily to stay with a friend so I could set the scene for the final reveal. At the height of the event, when most of the parents were gathered around the stage for a speech, I made my move. Standing in front of everyone, microphone in hand, I began my address. I just want to say how wonderful it is to see so many parents here today, supporting our children. My voice was steady, but inside, I was reveling in what was about to unfold. It's a beautiful thing, isn't it? Family, trust, honesty. I paused, scanning the crowd. I could see Ethan standing near the back, his arm draped protectively around Lily. And then, as if on cue, Jessica walked up to stand beside him, casually reaching out to touch his arm. The audience stilled. In the silence that followed, I took a deep breath and smiled sweetly. In fact, I've always believed that family is the foundation of everything. And I think it's important for everyone to know how grateful I am for my husband, Ethan. I turned to him, my eyes locking onto his. He gave a small, nervous smile, clearly trying to figure out where I was going with this. And his colleague, Jessica, for always being there, day and night, weekends, trips, dinners. I mean, how lucky am I to have a husband so dedicated to both his work and his relationships? A murmur swept through the crowd as I watched the color drain from Ethan's face. Jessica stiffened beside him, realizing the full weight of my words. In fact, maybe Jessica would like to say a few words about how close she's become with our family. I offered the microphone in her direction, the ultimate trap laid bare for everyone to see. Jessica's mouth opened, but no words came out. She glanced around at the stunned parents, her face now a mix of panic and confusion. Ethan, realizing the gravity of the situation, stepped forward, his voice tight. "Sarah, stop. This isn't the place." "Oh, I think it's exactly the place," I interrupted, my voice sharp and cold. "After all, we've all worked so hard to build this community of trust. What better way to celebrate it than by revealing the truth?" And just like that, the perfect image Ethan had spent years building crumbled in front of our friends, family, and the entire school community. The moment hung in the air, electric with shock and disbelief. The crowd's murmur turned into a cacophony of whispers, gasps, and the muffled sound of children giggling at their obliviousness to the drama unfolding before them. Ethan's face twisted from shock to anger as he stood frozen, while Jessica shifted uncomfortably, her cheeks flushing crimson. The laughter that once filled the school event transformed into a backdrop of tension and chaos. "You've lost your mind, Sarah." Ethan's voice rose above the noise, but his words only fueled my resolve. The man I had once loved was revealing his true self in front of everyone, and I savored the taste of victory. "No, Ethan," I said coolly, my voice steady as I addressed the crowd. "What's lost is our marriage, our trust, and your dignity. You've made your choices, and now everyone knows just how committed you've been." As the whispers turned into outright murmurs of discontent, I could see the realization dawning on the faces of the other parents. They began to piece together the clues, and shock morphed into sympathy. Some parents shifted uncomfortably, unsure of how to react, while others glared at Ethan and Jessica, their disappointment palpable. Ethan stepped forward, a hand raised in a defensive gesture. "This isn't fair, Sarah. You're turning this into a circus." "A circus," I shot back, my voice icy. "You're the one who brought the clowns." At that moment, Sharon, my mother-in-law, broke through the crowd, her expression a mix of anger and heartbreak. "What have you done, Ethan? How could you do this to Sarah?" she demanded, her voice shaking. "Mom, it's not what it looks like," he tried to explain, but the words fell flat. I had anticipated this moment. Ethan's mother was always on my side, and now, she stood firmly against him, her loyalty evident. "You don't get to play the victim here. You've betrayed your family, Ethan. You've betrayed your daughter." I watched as Ethan's facade began to crack, and for the first time, I felt a hint of pity, but it vanished as quickly as it came. This was the moment I had waited for, and it felt empowering. As the event descended into chaos, parents began leaving with their children, but not before giving Ethan looks of disdain. Many walked by me, offering their condolences and affirmations of support. It felt like I was rising from the ashes of betrayal, standing stronger than ever in my truth. "You know, it's funny how people change," I remarked to the onlookers. "One minute, you're a devoted husband, and the next, you're caught in a lie." My eyes flitted back to Ethan, whose frustration boiled over. "You're going to regret this, Sarah," he spat, his voice full of venom. I raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "Regret? No, I'm finally free from you, Ethan. This is liberation." After the event, I left with Lily, her small hand clasped tightly in mine. As we drove home, the weight of what had just happened began to sink in. I could see the worry in her eyes, and it broke my heart. "Mom, is everything okay?" she asked, her voice small. I forced a smile, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Everything's going to be okay, sweetie. Just a little bump in the road, that's all." The days that followed the public showdown were surreal. News of the confrontation spread through our neighborhood and school like wildfire. I was both mortified and relieved. Ethan had lost all his allies, and people began distancing themselves from him, many reaching out to me to offer support. "You did the right thing," Sarah said, one of the school parents, a close friend named Marissa. "He deserved to be called out like that. You can't let someone treat you like that and get away with it." "Thank you," I replied, feeling the warmth of validation. I needed it. Every kind word helped rebuild my confidence, piece by piece. Ethan's reaction post-event was predictable. He went from being defensive to desperately trying to win back the sympathy of those who had turned against him. He tried to paint himself as the victim, claiming that I had betrayed him by making things public. But the truth was clear to everyone who knew us. He had made choices that led to this fallout. As if the universe was serving me one last delicious twist of fate, I received a call from Jessica's boyfriend. Apparently, he had been aware of her affair with Ethan all along and was furious, confronting Ethan about his role in the betrayal. He wanted to meet with me. When we met, he filled me in on all the details of Ethan and Jessica's affair, including how they'd planned to run off together during one of those work retreats. "I thought you deserved to know the truth," he said, his eyes sympathetic. "I was blindsided, just like you." This was the moment I had been waiting for, irrefutable proof of Ethan's deceit. I thanked him and returned home, eager to confront Ethan once and for all. That evening, I called Ethan over for a family meeting, knowing full well he wouldn't expect a thing. When he walked in, his casual demeanor screamed denial, and I could see he thought he was going to talk his way back into our daughter's good graces. "Hey, I've been thinking about everything, and I really want to make things right," he said, taking a seat. I leaned forward, a sly smile on my lips. "Oh, Ethan, let's not kid ourselves. You and I both know what you've done. Jessica's boyfriend called me today. He's the one who wanted me to know the truth about your relationship." The color drained from his face, and the look of confusion quickly morphed into anger. "That doesn't matter. I was going to explain everything." "No, you were going to make excuses. And you know what? I don't want to hear them anymore. You've broken my trust, our family, and now the whole neighborhood knows what kind of man you really are." His response was a mix of desperation and rage, and I watched him crumble before me. In that moment, I felt liberated. The emotional weight I had carried for so long was finally lifting. I had taken control of my life and found the strength to stand up for myself, my family, and my daughter. The divorce process was quick, with the public embarrassment leading Ethan to concede more than I thought he would. I didn't want to drag this out. I wanted to focus on healing and rebuilding my life. I spent quality time with Lily, taking her on adventures to distract us both from the turmoil. We laughed, we cried, and we healed together, navigating our new life as a mother-daughter duo, no longer burdened by the lies and betrayal that had once overshadowed our lives. In the end, I realized I was stronger than I ever thought I could be. I had taken the betrayal and transformed it into a new beginning for myself and my daughter. The pain of Ethan's infidelity had led to unexpected growth, empowering me to redefine my life, my happiness, and my self-worth. And as for Ethan, he would have to learn to navigate the wreckage of his choices alone. I was moving forward, ready to embrace whatever came next. After all, the sun always rises after the storm, and I was determined to bask in its warmth, one glorious day at a time.